Okay, let's talk about the world of crypto. It's this high-stakes frontier where fortunes are made and lost in like the blink of an eye. And that incredible volatility, it's finally kicked off a global showdown, with governments racing to write the rulebook and, well, finally tame the crypto Wild West. So just to get a sense of what's on the table here, you really only need to see one number. In 2024, the total value of all crypto assets blew past $2 trillion. Yeah. This isn't some niche hobby anymore. It's a massive force in the global economy. But, all that explosive growth has a pretty dark side. The very things that make crypto so exciting for innovators, the speed, the anonymity, the lack of a central bank, have also created what one journal pretty bluntly called a petri dish for criminals. And it's fueling a huge illicit economy. All right, so to make sense of how the world is trying to get a handle on this, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll dig into the trillion-dollar dilemma regulators are facing. Then, we'll look at Europe's unified strategy versus America's legislative blitz. After that, we'll see how the industry itself is changing before we map out the new rules of the game. So first up, let's really get into the core conflict that's pushing all this regulation forward. It's this classic tug-of-war between incredible opportunity on one side and just massive risk on the other. On one hand, you have enthusiasm from the world's biggest financial players just surging. I mean, check this out. A huge survey by EY and Coinbase found that a staggering 83% of institutional investors are planning to increase their crypto holdings. The smart money is definitely all in. But then, here's the other side of that coin. The sobering reality of crime. One report estimated that nearly $40 billion in illegal transactions ran through crypto in just 1 year. That's a number that regulators they can't look away from. And this isn't just some abstract risk, right? The collapse of projects like Terraform Labs was absolutely spectacular. It wiped out over $40 billion in value, and it drained the life savings of everyday people. That really hammered home the urgent need for some real consumer protection. So, how are governments responding to this whole dilemma? Well, let's head across the Atlantic first, because Europe has decided to tackle this with a single comprehensive rulebook for all 27 of its member countries. The EU's big answer is this groundbreaking legislation called the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation, or MiCA, as everyone calls it. And it's a really big deal. It's the world's first complete legal framework for crypto, designed to bring some serious order to the chaos. And MiCA's mission really rests on 4 key pillars. It's trying to build a legal framework for all those assets that were in a gray area, while also giving enough legal clarity to actually help innovation. But at the same time, it is laser-focused on protecting you, the consumer, and making sure the whole system is stable. It's this holistic attempt to finally make the market legit. And you can see just how serious Europe is when you look at the details. MiCA gets incredibly specific. For example, it sets minimum training and experience requirements for staff. So if an employee just gives out information, they need 80 hours of training. But if they're giving financial advice, that number doubles to 160 hours. They're not messing around. Now, the United States, that's been a whole different story. A much more fragmented approach. But after years of just relying on enforcement, things are now changing, and changing really, really fast. For the longest time, the U.S. strategy was basically regulation by enforcement. So instead of writing new rules for crypto, different agencies would just use old laws to sue crypto companies. It created a super confusing and often contradictory environment for everyone. And this led to a massive jurisdictional turf war. You had the SEC on one side, arguing that most crypto tokens are securities, and they've launched over 100 lawsuits based on that idea. And on the other side, you had the CFTC saying, no, assets like Bitcoin are commodities, so they're ours to regulate. This uncertainty has basically left the entire industry in limbo. But now, finally, Congress is stepping in. A recent crypto week in the House unleashed a whole blitz of new legislation trying to build a clear American framework. We're talking about new laws to regulate stablecoins, to define the rules of the road for everyone, and even one to prohibit a government-run digital currency to protect financial privacy. So you've got regulators closing in from all sides. How is the crypto industry, which was born out of this whole spirit of rebellion, actually responding? Well, it's not by fighting back, which might surprise you. The whole narrative has shifted. Instead of fighting regulation, the smartest industry leaders are now embracing it. Like one speaker at a recent summit said, they don't see compliance as a burden anymore. They see it as the foundation they need to build mainstream trust and really unlock that next big wave of adoption. And you can really see this shift when you look at where the institutional money is flowing. With clearer rules coming, these big investors are moving way beyond just buying Bitcoin. They're diving into more complex parts of what we call decentralized finance, or DeFi. The top uses now, derivatives and staking. Together, they make up almost 80% of institutional interest. And get this, to keep up with all these new rules and demands, firms are turning to some seriously cutting-edge tech. They're using AI to manage the huge scale of crypto compliance, turning what used to be a cost center into a strategic tool. Think about it. Compliance analysts are going from doing boring tasks to literally managing teams of AI agents. The future is definitely here. So what does this all mean? Well, it means all these different threads, from Europe, from the US, from the industry itself, they're all weaving together to create a brand new reality for crypto. The future, it's pretty clear, is going to be one with rules and oversight. And this new era is coming up fast. If you look at this timeline, you can see Europe's MiCA regulation is already being phased in, and it's said to be fully implemented by mid-2026. At the same time, the US is pushing really hard to get its own major legislation passed in 2025. This global race to regulate is definitely hitting the final lap. Which brings us to the ultimate trillion-dollar question for this entire industry. Is this the end of crypto's rebellious, innovative spirit? Or are these rules the very thing crypto needs to finally settle the Wild West and become a trusted, mainstream pillar of the global financial system? I guess the next couple of years are going to give us our answer.